Everybody, welcome back. We are the Bad Pennies, and we are back. I'm Sho. This is my friend Alan, and we're talking about the growing up of young men. And the last episode was about 0 to 5, and now we're going to go from 5 to 10
7,
to 15.
Yeah, I would say 7 to 14.
7 to 14. Okay, so let's talk about 7 to 14-year-old boys. Let's talk about fatherhood, dealing with those young boys, and then we'll talk about boys and what they're going through from 7 to 14.
Yeah, so in the 7 to 14 or 15 range, at some point they're going to go through puberty, and that's just a whole
that's messy
vortex of difficulty in itself.
Yeah.
But being a teacher, and one of the things I didn't want to do was middle school, because that's the period where they're all going their hormones are exploding and they're going crazy. And they don't want to hear anything that you have to say about anything. So just know that during this period, the degree of listening that your sons are going to do diminishes the older they get.
The degree of listening.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to you. And so that's why,
when you say listening, are we talking about obedience, or are we talking about paying attention?
I'm talking about anything you have to say or do, they're not interested, right?
Huh.
Son, I want you to come into the family business. And it's like, I'd rather die. Okay. I mean, that may change down the road, but generally speaking, they don't want to have anything to do with anything that you do. And the older they get, the more prevalent that kind of attitude starts to come out. You don't have an influence over them as they get older. The influence over your sons decreases, but it doesn't mean that you throw caution to the wind and stop being everything that you must be as far as being an example. Because it will make a difference down the road. Just because you won't see a lot of effect in real time does not mean that it's not affecting them. It's so when I've worked with men who are struggling as a father, especially of sons. Oh, he doesn't listen to me and he's being rebellious and blah blah. Well, that's what we do. I mean, think about it when you were that age, right?
Yeah.
And again, what we said in the other podcast about really paying attention to how you were. Because and a lot of times fathers will conduct themselves in a way to try to keep their sons from being the way they were when they were growing up, and I don't think that works very well, to be honest with you. I think the more you try, the more you're going to give energy to them actually rebelling even more.
So trying to prevent them from doing something actually causes them to do that thing.
Well, it certainly supports it anyway in many ways. So, and another big mistake is to try to be their friend.
Yeah.
They've got friends. You're not their friend. You're their father, and they're living in your house, and they're starting to want to be their own man, and that doesn't work very well when there's already a man in charge. So there's going to be, budding of
so from 7 to 14, you're thinking that this whole manhood thing is starting.
It's starting, and it starts. It could start anytime after 5, really. But the thing is that, and you're no longer, golden, right? You're no longer the male influence that they hang on every word and every action, right? And as they get older, that diminishes more and more and more until it pretty much seems non-existent. But that does not relieve you of your responsibilities, duties, and obligations to be everything that you want them to be when they grow up. An example of all of that: standards, character, honor, being respectful to others, and being someone that people trust, being a good husband. In fact, a really good friend of mine says all the time that the best way to be a good father is to be a great husband.
Right.
So again, you're still setting the example as a leader, right? Because we started this podcast, 16 podcasts ago, talking about men and leadership.
Yeah.
Well, this is part of it. You're leading your family. You're leading your children. You're leading your sons. You're leading your daughters by being an example.
Yeah. Now, on the other side, talk about the kid. Okay, the kid at this point in his life he still wants to have fun. He's still trying to figure things out. He's trying to find himself, right? He's trying to find what he's capable of, and he's doing that in the fun and experimentative kind of a way,
right?
So that's probably why he's not listening to what the dad's saying, because he's trying to figure it out on his own.
Yeah, and the older he gets, the more on his own he wants to be,
right?
And that's another reason why you don't want to be his friend, and you don't want to make life easy for him, because if you do, you'll rob him of doing that. You'll rob him of all the lessons that come from the experimentation and failure of trying to be his own man.
Yeah. You can't just say yes to everything the kid wants.
Look, it was kind of a 60s thing where, it was flower power and everybody and love and peace and all of that kind of stuff. And fathers started to want to have a relationship with their children. Okay. And has been proven for tens of thousands of years that doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. As much as it sounds good and as much as it feels good, ultimately, the more that you're friends with your children, the more you basically sell out their childhood and their the lessons that they need to be successful in life. And life is tough.
Yeah. And
as you know, life is tough, and you cannot, unless you want them to live in your house the rest of their life, and which is starting to happen, right? By the way, that's a big trend in this country.
Yeah.
Some of it for financial reasons, and some of it because
coddling.
We've been easy on our kids, and for reasons where we're like, well, it was tough on me, and I'll make sure that it's not tough on my kids. Well, but you're successful because it was tough on you.
Yeah.
You
got forged in the fire.
Yeah. You learned how to figure it out, and you learned how to develop the skills and things to be able to deal with a very tough and challenging world.
Yeah.
So if you coddle your children, they are completely and totally unprepared for a world that's often very unforgiving.
Right. And also, okay, so for a 7 to 14-year-old son, like we're talking about right now, they also have their other friends, their small circle, their tribe that they're building.
And that's what becomes very important. In fact, peer, again, if you can look this up in psychology books, and but the peer pressure becomes the number one influence in their lives. Mm-hmm. And
not just that, the bonds that they create also. They start to trust each other and learn from each other.
Yes, they do. And that's, by the way, learning to trust each other and learn from each other in that peer group is a part of the process of becoming resourceful. So as you become an adult, you don't just rely on your own knowledge or your dad's knowledge, that you can get out into the world and find the answers to things that you don't know the answers to. And you can do it on your own. You don't have to rely on dad to know everything.
Yeah.
So, or mom or whatever, but you're independent.
So
you're able to move through the world in a if not just truly independent, certainly interdependent, because human beings are really interdependent.
Right.
So look that up.
Interdependent.
I'm not going to pull it up on the dictionary today, but just go look up interdependent. It's an important word, and it applies to so many things in life, and it certainly applies to the human experience. Yeah.
So do you think that a father should be trying to shape the son's circle of friends?
No, you can't do that unless it's very clear that they've fallen into a circle of bad influence. Problem is the more you tell them they can't, the more they want it.
Yeah.
So,
but you could do things like, okay, let me put him with this basketball program over here, or.
Well, here's the thing that starts to really come into play, which is the idea of boundaries. Fathers set boundaries.
Okay.
And Don't you remember? I just had a flash of my mom saying, like, when I crossed a boundary when I was a kid, and it was like, wait until your father comes home, right?
Okay. Oh, that's the scary thing.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh God, and of course my father was always easier on me than my mom was. But the thought of what he might say or do was just always loomed large. But the thing is that fathers bring context to their children.
Fathers bring context.
Yeah, mothers are great at mothering, and they're great at providing the incredible loving environment to have your childhood and to be free to have your childhood. And fathers bring in the standards and the boundaries, and they bring in the context. Often, they bring in the why. Well, why wouldn't mom let me do this? Well, son, it's like this.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that, again, that's not trying to be their friend. That's just giving them context.
Yes.
You would hope that you've given them enough to figure out who good friends are going to be.
Okay.
But not always.
And like you said, boundaries too. So if one of the other friends has this idea, but that's outside of what the boundaries that you set, then your son is going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't think we should do that because of a boundary that kid's father has set.
Whatever the household and family boundaries are, they can't change. They're not changeable. They're standards that must be adhered to, and if they're not, there's a consequence. There's some kind of consequence. Now, look, you can't set boundaries and enforce them if you don't live by your own set of standards.
So it goes back to being an example.
It is. If you're breaking standards, if you want your children to be disciplined and you're not, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Now, also during this period, fathers need to make life tough for their sons. You're just raising the bar all the time, because again, you have a job to do, and you're preparing him to be able to survive in a very difficult world. So you're going to want to make life tough and not necessarily easy. And sure, he's going to go to mom and to get comfort, whatever. Dad, you know how that is. And mom's going, it's okay, son, it's all right. Your dad's an asshole. But and the thing is that, but you can't let up. But here's a cautionary piece of this way of being. Some fathers are so tough that they break their son's spirit.
At 14?
At any age. Huh. You can break their spirit at any age, pretty much, until they're out of the house. Why would you do that? I mean, if say you were a coach of an athlete, the job of a coach is to always raise the bar.
Okay.
You're always raising the bar, and nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah, you got to test for limitations.
Hey, listen, I felt that. I don't know how, all you men out there, the kind of relationship that you had with your father, but I would be willing to bet that a lot of you had the kind of relationship where you felt at some point that nothing you ever did was good enough. That's because whatever level you came up to, he raised the bar a little bit more.
Okay.
And it's like, and finally, but that's good. You see, that's because if you're trying to be their friend, you wouldn't raise the bar. You want to pat them on the back and tell them they did. I mean, it's okay once in a while to tell them they did a great job, but what's more beneficial to them is, so how could you have done that better?
Right.
What could have gone? Yeah. What did you not do that you could have done?
Right.
I know that when I was learning to be a photographer, my mentor, who I had a great conversation with yesterday, by the way, he's turning 81 soon, and still going strong, and still one of the world's great photographers. But I would go back to my place and I would shoot stuff, and I would do headshots and other things, and print them in my darkroom and get on the train and go out to Brooklyn to see him. And I'd have, like a portfolio of a whole bunch of stuff that I had done over the last week or two. And then he'd just tear them apart. And I don't mean like physically tear them apart. I mean, he'd go like, well, why didn't you do this? And how come you did this? And this is too dark and this needs to be lighter. And why didn't you turn them a little more this way? And I mean, it was just never, ever good, he was always raising the bar. Even if the shot was great, I was like, I love the shot. And he'd look at it and go, yeah, but there's, and I'd be like, I'd be pulling my hair out, like, never good. But when I went back to my apartment in New York, I was like fired up to prove that I could do a better job, that I could do what he was pointing out, and not only do it, but do it better. And I learned how to be a professional photographer at a very, very high level because of that.
Because the bar kept
if he had just looked at the picture and said,
raised.
well, son, you did a great, these are great. You did a great job.
You would have thought that was good enough.
And that's it. I would have, I would have thought it was good enough.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a great way to be for your sons, is that you're raising the bar, and no, you're not going to be their friend when you do this.
Right. You can't be their friend.
You can't. You can't. And it's painful. So let's just talk a little bit about that too. There is, once they're sort of past the stage of listening to and hanging on every word that you say, right? And thinking that everything you do is golden. Once you're past that stage, it's pretty much gone for most of the rest of your life. They will come back hopefully at some point, and we'll talk about that too. But it's a burden, and it's a painful a burden that fathers carry, and you have to figure out a way to be with it and accept it as the job, right? Because you don't have children to feel good. If you're having children to feel good, then it's like that the Murphy Brown TV show, when she wanted to have children to make her feel good. And I remember that I think it was the Vice President of the United States had said something despairingly about a single woman adopting a child, or having a baby, adopting a baby. And there's no problem with someone adopting a baby. The problem was the reason. If you're looking to have children to fulfill yourself, it's not the path. It will give you incredible fulfillment down the road. I've talked to literally thousands of parents over the years, and there's an incredible amount of fulfillment that comes from doing the work, not having the children.
Okay.
And I'll say that again. The fulfillment comes from doing the job, not having the kids.
Okay.
They are not there to fulfill your life. They are not there to make you feel better about yourself. They are not there to make you a better man or woman. They are children, and they owe us nothing. We brought them into the world, and they do not owe us anything. All right?
Fair enough.
So, but we do have a responsibility to them.
Yeah.
Until look, and arguably the responsibility is to get them to 18 or 20 and out of the house and alive.
Okay.
All right. And relatively psychologically and emotionally stable. All right.
So we'll go on the next episode, we'll go into that 18-year-old kid, right?
Yes. We'll start to talk. Actually, we're going to talk about like something changes even at around 15 or 16.
Okay.
All right. There's a big shift.
But let's make sure we recap where we're at.
Who you are doesn't shift. So go ahead and recap that.
We'll recap for a 7 to 14-year-old kid. They're starting to smell themselves now for the first time. They have a circle. Oh no, that I mean it.
No, I get
both
it.
Literally and figuratively. They really start to
that
smell
testosterone thing.
Yeah. But let's see. They have their circle of friends that they have to grow and learn and trust with. They have boundaries that have been set that they're starting to recognize. The father still has to be the example that he wants to see for the kids. The father also has to understand that the kid is going to want to find interdependence.
Yes.
Right? Anything else I missed?
Yeah, you've got to be raising the bar.
Raising the bar. Yes, that was a big one. That was a big one.
Constantly raising the bar. It's not you maintaining the boundaries and always raising the bar, making life difficult for him.
Great.
Is the way to ensure that you don't fall into the trap of being their friend.
Okay, great.
Okay,
got it. So next episode, now the kid is growing up a little bit more. 16 to 18, we'll go there next.
Okay.
All right, Bad Pennies. Be right back.
I'll see you.